Should Michael Vick be allowed to return to the NFL when he's released from jail? Or would that spell disaster for any team that picks him up? Has he served his debt to society and earned the right to return to football? It's your call right now. Michael Vick, who once wore the team colors of the Atlanta Falcons, has most recently been wearing prison stripes for his part in a dogfighting operation. But his prison term is almost up, and that means he could soon be looking for a team. Would you be okay if he was the quarterback of your team? Hello, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle, and I find this topic to be especially intriguing. On one hand, you have a guy who is, by all accounts, incredibly talented, who made a mistake in judgment, and who has paid for that mistake with an almost 2-year prison sentence. Should he have to sacrifice his career now as well? On the other hand, though, the NFL has been making all kinds of noise about having its players as role models. So would it be setting a bad example to let Vick back in? And would anyone want to risk the ire of the all-powerful PETA organization? Well, those are just a couple of questions that we're asking one of our all-time favorite panels. It includes Sayde Ladov, who is the Chancellor of the Philadelphia Bar Association and a former prosecutor, Jeff Gold, who's a criminal defense attorney, Tariq El-Shabazz, who is a former assistant district attorney now in private practice, and Marc Neff, who is a criminal defense attorney. They're all great friends of the show, and it is delightful to have you all back here. Welcome.
Good to be back.
First question, should he be allowed to come back into the NFL? Because that's going to be the first question he asks when he gets out of jail.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. How about you, Jeff?
Let him come back if he wants to come back, but he won't.
All right, let's start with Sayde. She was a resounding no. Why not let this guy in? People serve prison sentence every single day. They come back, and we expect them to find a job. He wants a job, and you're saying no, not here.
Oh, no. I'm saying by all means he can find a job, just not in the NFL. I absolutely agree with you. The NFL is making all kinds of noises, and in fact, they've come out and said that they expect individuals who play in the NFL to be leaders. This man has violated every tenet that the NFL stands for. The only thing he's led are dogs to the slaughter. So why would I want him leading my team?
Because people make mistakes every day, maybe. And if people make mistakes every day and they pay for those particular mistakes, individuals should be allowed to do their usual vocation. They should be allowed to be professional athletes like they would be allowed to be bus drivers or truck drivers to the end of it. It is unfair.
I agree with Tariq, and he's paid his debt to the court. The question is, in the court of public opinion, is anybody really going to pick him up? Is anybody going to pay $57 million to put this guy on their team? Certainly Atlanta's not going to bring him back. They may let him in. The question is he really going to play?
All right. Jeff doesn't seem to think that he is really going to play. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Yeah. First, we're talking about the philosophical question of whether or not when the NFL is presented with this question, I'd like to return, should it say yes or no?
Right. Philosophically, of course they should let him come back. He's done his time, and there's no reason why he shouldn't. But they won't because of what Sayde said. It's a different obligation. It's a moral thing. It's not about whether he should come back because he served his debt. It's whether they want him back because he's a role model.
What is the moral thing about athletes in football that commit homicide by vehicle because they're drunk, but they're playing football now? Here's a situation that people are afraid of PETA. I don't know why they're afraid of PETA, Paul, or anyone else, but at the end of the day, this individual who paid his debt to society has the right to earn a living with the skills that he has, and that happens to be football.
You know, Tariq, I almost agree with you. I also really do not care about PETA. What I do care about is you and I know that when an individual pays their debt to society, there are certain professions that they can no longer go back to. For example, a convicted felon cannot work in a nursing home situation. Someone who has been involved with domestic violence wouldn't be good working with children. Michael Vick, because
shouldn't work with animals.
Well, he shouldn't work with animals, but he should not be called on to lead a team.
All right, I have to ask this question now. I mean, really, football arguably is one of the most violent sports available to spectators today. I mean, we're not condoning what he did, but is that the wrong profession for him because he was involved in the dogfighting industry?
It's the wrong profession for him, Lynn, because what the NFL is saying at the end of the day, when you take off your helmet and you take off your cleats, we expect you players to conduct yourself in a particular way, and that's where Michael Vick doesn't fit.
We agree with that. That's okay.
There's something more to it as well, which is that it's a privilege to play in the NFL.
That's right.
And you become very rich. And Michael Vick, even now, although he has a bankruptcy hearing next week, is very rich. And he's been rich from that profession. So in a way, to look at it and say, does he deserve this privilege, is different than saying, should he be able to? I think he should be able to. But the owners all have a right to say, we don't want him to have that privilege.
Well, an employer has a right to say that. But at the end of the day, we can't talk about it as a privilege. Why? Because this is how the individual made his living. At the end of the day, that's what he did as a football player. For anyone to say that someone who makes a mistake, who in fact admits to that mistake, and in fact pays for that mistake, that they should not be allowed to become a regular, productive member of the community doing the same thing that they did prior to that, I think is absurd and ludicrous, especially in a profession.
How does that teach a lesson to our children if we don't let him come back? I mean, here's a guy that's paid his debt. Right. He admitted his culpability.
Never forgiven.
Right. Do we not let him go back, and do we tell our children, based on this, that what happens is you make a mistake and you're never forgiven, and you can never return to your chosen path? Or do we tell our children, if you admit your mistake and you take your medicine and you take your punishment, then you get a second chance?
What we tell them is a little bit of both, that sometimes there are mistakes that you make that are so grievous, notwithstanding the fact that you say you're sorry and you take your medicine and you pay your pound of flesh back to the system. We are going to let you go back to work. We are going to let you be a productive member of society, but just not in this venue.
Except if you commit homicide.
But not dog.
Homicide
is okay,
there you
but
go.
not dog.
We're going to get there in just a minute, but first, we've heard from the guys here in the panel. Now we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about this Michael Vick situation. Should he be allowed to play in the NFL when he is finished his prison sentence? And here's a really big question. Would you want him on your team? Is it fair to single him out after, as the panelists have pointed out, he served his debt to society? If you want to tell us what you think, here's how you do it. You can email me your thoughts and your opinions to IYC, TCN_IYC at cable.comcast.com. You can also find us on the Comcast Sportsnet website. Look for IYC and then tell me what you think. You can also take our web poll there when you are there. And listen, you can also find me on Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. We'd love to know what you have to say, so go ahead and email us anytime you can. All right, you guys brought up something that I really wanted to touch on, and that was sadly, there are so many people already involved in the NFL who have some sort of sheet. Domestic violence, drug abuse, DWI. Can I say Ray Lewis? Hello, homicide alleged in Baltimore.
Rape.
He's a hero.
Rape.
So why did these guys come back? But because
alleged
his crime was against animals, now there's some allegation that he would be a worse role model than some of these other guys. That I'm sorry, I don't get. Either kick them all out or let them all back in.
Absolutely. And what is a worse role model? It seems to me that someone who acknowledges they made a mistake, as all human beings did, and I dare anyone and challenge anyone to call up here and say they've never made a mistake in life, pays their debt to society, now comes back and be a better individual. We don't know how he's going to be. I'm not saying that he should be let into the NFL without any type of stipulations, any type of probationary period, anything to that nature. But I'm saying you have to give this individual, this young man, an opportunity to make good. And in order to do that, it seems to me, in this country, he should be allowed to play.